listening to Flor Unmuted. I'm Flor, and every week we're talking power, politics, cultura, and the people getting left behind. Let's get into it. Everyone talks about national politics. Flor Unmuted is about the decisions that shape our communities long before they make national headlines. Today's conversation is about power, leadership, rural California, and why local government may be the most important level of government we have. Let's get into it.
Sal, thank you so much for joining me on Flor Unmuted. I'm so excited to have you on. We've known each other for a long time at this point. We've seen a lot of political dynamics play out around us. We're still here.
First and foremost, Flor, thank you for inviting me to participate in your podcast. Flor Unmuted has become a force of nature in Kern County in the Central Valley. I truly believe that. I think that if anyone who is listening, who is not only an elected official, a leader, a candidate, if you want to make it, you have to go on Flor Unmuted. This is where campaigns are made.
Thank you, Sal.
And so
thank you so much.
and I think that is remarkable. I appreciate the communications that we've had as well. You have that spirit in you to continue to fight for the people that we serve. But as far as myself, I was elected in 2020. After graduating Fresno State, I came back and I decided to get involved and started attending city council meetings. And at the age of 24, I ran for city council. And by the grace of God and my community and hard work, we won a seat. And I ran for re-election this past November. And by the grace of God and my community again, was elected 4 more years. I've served as a city council member. I've served as the vice mayor for the city of Delano, and now serving and with great honor as the mayor for the second largest city in Kern County.
Delano's thriving. I've seen it firsthand. I grew up there cleaning houses with my mom. That was my summer vacation. I love Delano. I was actually there today getting a poke bowl and a boba and hit up Ross. So it was a fun little
There we
fun little
go.
date there.
Thank you for spending your tax dollars in Delano.
Yeah, absolutely. I quickly Googled like a trip to the nearest CPS store, and it was actually Delano that was closest to
Wow.
me. It was a 25-minute drive versus like a 35-minute drive to Bakersfield.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that brought me to Delano, and I think it brings many of us rural, outside, spread out towns that we have out here too. That's one of the bigger curiosities that I have. What does it take to move a rural community forward?
Absolutely. I think the way that we move a rural city like the city of Delano forward is acknowledging the issues that we all face. As we see and we know, Delano started off as in a way, a small village and is now a booming Kern County city. And that is not only because of the city council, because of myself, because of city staff, but I believe heavily it's because of the people. We've boomed Delano with growth and opportunity, and that occurred because of the people. They decide not only who their leaders are, but they are great in communicating to their elected representatives of what they want to see. As far as my time on the city council since 2020, I have been a champion for the working people. When it comes to economic growth, when it comes to providing opportunity to our young people, which we'll get to later more in detail. When it comes to uplifting our community as a whole, I can assure that I've been a champion for all of those issues and to move Kern County and this city of Delano forward. Because one thing that we all have in common when we engage in public service is that we love the community that we're living in. I strongly believe that no one runs for office or engages in public service or organizes if they didn't love their community, if they didn't believe that the city that they live in could be better off than they found it. And so it's about civic engagement. It's about, knowing your community. Oftentimes, Floor, I get asked by some young people who want to run for office, or when they ask why I ran for office, I tell them something that I heard before that I think I really admire, and it really stuck to home, which is that you don't run for office because you did an internship in DC or in Sacramento, which are very important, by the way. I don't want to bring anyone down who is doing that. But you run for office because you had a conversation with your neighbor about them fearing being deported by ICE. You run for office because you know that the issues that our community faces, you've lived them yourself. And so I think that is why I am in public service and public office, is to help our community. We're living in a time in which, we've seen that the voters and the community, they're done with the status quo. They want people in positions of power to help them their everyday lives. And that is a serious conversation that I think we need to have as leaders in Kern County and all across the United States, which is, what in the hell are we doing to make people's lives better? And so that is why I'm in this fight. I believe in it heavily. Oftentimes we hear about the presidency, or we hear about Congress or the Senate, you name it, or the governor. But your local city council, my God, you can make drastic change for years to come.
Absolutely. No, and you bring up a good point. I like what you said about, it takes community and, civic engagement. I want to touch a little bit on that because I think we're seeing, well, at least I'm seeing more activism and like public comments and things, and people coming to meetings and kind of, raising questions, right? And, as somebody who sits on the city council or like a governing board, what is the best way a community member can come forward in public comment to be most effective? And then on the other side of that, like, what do you think sometimes constituents might miss when they try to engage their local city council or governing boards?
Those are great questions. So when it comes to being more effective, I will say that no elected official should dictate on how community members vocalize their concerns. And I'm going to say that being the fact that, I have debated certain issues that some people don't agree with, and it's gotten heated. But at the same time, I'm no one to dictate how people express themselves, because we decided to enter these roles for a reason, which is to help the community. And so if that means that some people, come to city council and provide public comment at every single meeting, which, by the way, has happened, but I also want to provide at least some sense of assistance, which is, don't let it stop there. And what I mean by that is, don't simply come to the meetings and vocalize your concerns. Reach out to your elected official. I always vocalize, and I always say, Flor, my phone number is 661-387-4231. I am always open for a conversation, or to sit down and have lunch or breakfast or coffee, or you name it. Because I think oftentimes when we hear about certain things, or we hear about certain issues that cause a lot of drama and conversation, which is in a sense sometimes important for democracy and to solve issues, I think we need to make sure to realize that, at least in my position, we're really just trying our best. We're trying our best. Oftentimes we also think that change happens in a snap of a finger. And sometimes that is just not reality. Sometimes things take time. I want to let folks know, if you are going, whether you are in Bakersfield, whether you are in McFarland, whether you are in Wasco, LA, and you have issues that you want to vocalize to your elected officials, show up to the meetings. That is your governing body. But at the same time, don't let it stop there. continue to have productive conversations with your elected officials about the issues that you care about, because I think that's how you make a long-lasting change. If you come to a meeting and you say certain things, and sometimes, people say things because of misinformation, and we, as elected officials, we can confirm with staff, we can get those experts to the table and involved. But ultimately, I want people to understand, Flor, that it is their government, it is their community, and they need to vocalize their concerns to their elected officials as much as they can. Because I'm going to say this as well, and I'm not saying this about me, but at times there are certain elected officials that are out of touch with the working class folks of what their day-to-day lives are experiencing in the real world. And so absolutely, let them know. Oftentimes we hear this idea, right, or this slogan about, well, walk in my shoes so you can know how it feels.
Mhm.
That's a false statement, because you can't walk in people's shoes, because I have had different opportunities arise. We have had different ways of life, different life experiences. We're all different. But when we share adversity, instead of just saying, walk in my shoes to see how it feels, no, I think we need to look at people for who they are and acknowledge the suffering, that they experience with this economy, right? Or the fear of them getting deported, which are real issues that people are facing with. And so
Yeah.
it's important for us as leaders to do less talking and more listening. I highly believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. You just gave us your cell phone number, right? On this Central Valley wide and beyond podcast, right? Right. I think that is a signal of you making a worthwhile effort to not become an out of touch elected official that doesn't know what's going on around them, right? Which is would probably be one of my biggest fears is who do I need to talk to, right? I want to kind of go back because you touched a little bit on this, and I saw this in the news when it came up. You became mayor, and leadership isn't avoiding hard decisions or hard moves and things that you feel are within your value system. I think that's a huge reason why you're in your seat, right? Because you stand on values and people know what you stand for and they vote for you, right? And I know you've taken positions that have generated strong reactions. You proposed an ICE ordinance uh, at one point, and you also proclaimed June as Pride Month for the city of Delano. How do you decide when it's worth taking a difficult stance?
I believe that in the future, we will be judged for what we do with power and what we don't do with power. I believe that we are living in a time in which our fundamental principles and ideals as Americans are completely under attack, where the rule of law is not being upheld, where we see that Latinos are being hunted in the streets of America, being treated like animals, and where rights of people are being stripped away. And so when I see the news and I see what's happening across our nation, I sit where I'm at and I say, what in the hell can I do? What do I do with the power that I have instilled in me? The little power, may I say, to whether to proclaim Pride Month. For many individuals, I received an email after I proclaimed Pride Month this year. I received an email from someone who mentioned that their family member was going to take their life, and that because they felt like they didn't belong, and that they saw then that we proclaimed Pride Month in the city of Delano, and that changed something in them. Similar to the ICE-free ordinance. That policy, it people felt something. They felt a sense of hope. They said, hold up now, we're not just sweeping it under the rug as if it doesn't matter. We're acknowledging it fully. And I believe in having tough conversations, Flor. I believe in it because that's democracy. That is, if we don't have tough conversations about the issues that we care about, what are we doing? And before, I'm going to be frank with you, before championing the ICE-free ordinance, I was terrified. I was terrified because I said, not only what does this mean for my community? Am I inviting chaos? Am I inviting ICE to target my community? And of course, the many people that I spoke to, some said, hey, hold up now. This may damage your quote unquote political career. To that, I said, so be it. Because I want to know down the line, or I want to tell my future children, my grandchildren, that when people's rights were being taken from them in Sudan, that we did something here in the city of Delano that comprises of 50,000 people. And hopefully as well, Flor, it showed other communities all across the Central Valley that you can have tough conversations, and you absolutely should. Because when it means to uplift our community, to make sure that we let them know that they're valued here, we take their taxpayer money. Why in the hell can't we fight to advocate to make sure that we protect our immigrant community in ways that we haven't before? And to ask questions. We have legal available. We have our city attorney available at our disposal. To ask questions of what we could do to bring folks to the table and say what voices aren't being heard here to make sure that we protect the most vulnerable. And that is why I champion the ICE-free ordinance here in the city of Delano. And I'm going to be frank with you, I think it has been one of the most meaningful things that I have championed, because people had a sense of hope and that we valued our immigrant community, our undocumented community in the city of Delano. And for those who have said that what we did was quote unquote political theater, to me, it was doing the job that we were elected to do, which is to have tough conversations that matter. And so, like, to answer your question directly on what do I do before deciding to bring something forward that causes a lot of disruption, I think that if you're not causing a little bit of disruption, then I don't think you're doing your job. A little bit of disruption is needed, At one point, yes, infrastructure is important. And it might not be the most sexiest thing we want to see, fixing the roads or building more housing or bringing in more jobs. But outside of that, we have to ask ourselves, what more can we do to serve our community, to make sure that people feel valued, seen, and loved in a city like Delano? And that is
I've been in rooms where you've had to, at times, defend yourself from personal attacks and things of that sort. And how do you keep composure when certain heated topics get personal?
yeah. When it becomes personal, I think it's very difficult to avoid feeling what we feel. We're human. So I think that it's okay. But oftentimes I tell myself, when I'm in these rooms and it becomes personal, try to bring it back to the issues. Try to bring it back to the issue at hand. And I'll give you an example. When I was championing the ICE-free ordinance, a fellow council member then said that I was doing this because of political theater. That's personal. To me, that signified, you're just doing this for yourself, buddy. And I sat there and I said, I'm going to address it. And the way that I addressed it, I brought it back to the issue. If you believe that this is political theater, turn on the news. Turn on the news and see what I have been seeing, which is children being taken from their parents, being taken to ICE detention centers, where literally the people have protected their own. I think that's one thing that's absolutely beautiful, Florida, that we need to also touch on, which is the power of the people. We've seen it play out in the city of LA. We've seen it played out in other communities all across California and the United States, that the people are the ones that have the power, that protect themselves, that say, you will not take my community member without a valid judicial warrant. The work that we do should always go back to the people. Make a world, a city that's dignified, that sees people for who they are, And if you, as an elected representative, do not see that value, then I think you need to change your profession, and you need to get out of office, quite frankly.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad that you're touching on the ordinance that you proposed for Delano, and that was that ICE could not detain any citizen of Delano without a judicial warrant, which I mean just sounds like a basic right. Since we're on the topic, we recently saw the Supreme Court's birthright citizenship decision, and those types of decisions don't stay in Washington. They land in cities like Delano and rural Kern. Even now, immigration continues to be debated. What do you think the decision of the Supreme Court mean to our local immigrant communities here?
I think that after yesterday's decision, we can all take a breather. But the way that the vote went down and the dissents that took place should be very alarming. I think this administration is one of the most callous administrations that we've witnessed. They do not abide by the rule of law. They don't give a damn about the Constitution of the United States. And I'm going to get a little bit, partisan here, is that this party, the Trump party, is so-called the party of law enforcement, the party of law and order. And we have seen that that is not the case, because if that was the case, then they would abide by the rule of law, which is the law of the land, which is the Constitution of the United States. And so with yesterday's decision, I believe that people, yes, they can feel better about themselves, saying, hey, you know what? The Supreme Court reaffirmed what we already knew, but at the same time, and that conversation that took place caused damage. I believe it did, because it vocalized to so many people that this administration is doing everything that they can to rip us away from this country, to say that we do not belong, to say because we are brown in America that we do not belong here.
Yeah.
And I think that is incredibly alarming. I've had conversations we've seen that happen, where it's, take, and then you ask questions later. You take these people and you ask questions later. And I have had people come to me, call me, and say, I'm afraid to go to my doctor's appointment. And guess what? They're United States citizens. But they fear that because they look Latino, or they are Latino, that they are going to be stopped and taken. Even though they scream to them and say, I am a United States citizen, they still feel fear in the streets of America with this current administration. And I think that we, later on, come 2028, we need to have conversations on what solutions we do when it comes to the Supreme Court, whether we expand the court, because we have noticed, I'm going to say it's common. It's common in politics, period, which it shouldn't be for the highest court of the land.
Yeah.
But it is common that corruption lives, and it's living, as we see, in the Supreme Court with certain justices.
Yeah.
And I am no legal expert.
Yeah.
But I think that's important to know, that this president is doing the most he can to erase us from America and to erase history from America. And I think that's something that we need to call out, and it's something that we need to acknowledge and to reaffirm to everyone who is listening, who is watching, who is out in the streets of Delano and Wasco and Kern County, is that no one president has a monopoly on what it means to be an American.
Yeah.
We do. The Constitution of the United States does. And so that is where I stand on that. And I really hope that folks feel, especially with the 250th anniversary, the birthday of America, is for them to be proud to be in this country, regardless of all the chaos that they see in Washington. I want people to know that this country belongs to them. It belongs to we the people. And I hope that people feel that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you talked a little bit about the Supreme Court justices, and I believe Brett Kavanaugh was someone who called in the attention of Congress has the right to change the Constitution or make an amendment law. And Trump took that and he made a post on Truth Social later that day. And so, in my opinion, ahead of the midterms, if Congress does do something like this or tries to take a position or push some sort of legislation like this, it'll be interesting to see, in competitive House districts, how those incumbents are going to move. And, in turn, how that might affect outcomes come November. So it'll be interesting to see if they move on it. But, Sel, I appreciate you advocating and, you taking those difficult positions on. It's not easy to do so. Of the folks who supported your campaigns, whether it was folks in the Democratic Party or, another other coalition support, did you feel supported in those moments where you were bringing up these topics based on values that you felt tense about?
I knew that folks were always there if I wished to call upon them. But as far as to be direct, if folks showed up to support who did not live in Delano, I will say no, they didn't show up. And of course, that's on them. That's their perspective and their opinion. But I think that one of the prime examples is the policies that we push for. If they center around our working class neighbors, we need a coalition. We need a coalition of everyone, because what happens in Delano happens in Bakersfield. What happens to Delano happens to Wasco, happens to Shafter, happens to Lamont, happens to Arvin, happens to California. And so when we don't have a united force, policies like the one that I just did fail. They fail because we need, especially in the times that we're living in, we need a coalition of people to stand up and say, this is not okay. And to say, and ultimately, I'm all about agreeing to disagree. I'm all for that. I respect it. I love it. That's democracy. But when it comes to supporting ideas that truly help people, I think that we need to all be there cheering that on. And ultimately, the community of Delano did show up, and my city, and both sides showed up in Delano. Those who supported the policy, those who did not, and I value both. I think that both are important because both can kind of also provide a sense of awareness on both sides. I don't believe in being reckless. I don't think that you should push for something for the sake that you can just say you did.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in pushing for policies, but making sure that you have conversations with community, making sure that you have conversations with your city staff. And I know that that's probably not a great thing for people to hear, but I need to explain why. City staff are the ones that execute all the ideas that we have. And so when I bring forward a policy, as much as we run in a city manager layout where the city council, the city manager serves on behalf of the city council, I made sure to sit down with my city manager and to tell her my idea and to tell her to be honest, to give me her feedback. In that ordinance that I introduced, I sat with her and I said, what do you think about this sample model policy? And you know what she said? She said, sir, can you take that out? Sir, it might be good. This might be good for you to add. So there was dialogue and communication. It wasn't direction because the full body directs the city manager and city business. But before even bringing it to council, I did my homework. I spoke with the city attorney. I spoke with the city manager. I spoke with leaders across California who did the same policy in their community. And I said, how did you do it and how can I do it? And give me it all. Give me the good and the bad and the ugly. I want to know, have you been targeted? I want to know, have you received or have you been taken away your federal funding? I asked all of it. And I think that that in itself is responsible governing. And so again, going back to these big controversial topics, yes, bring them forward, but don't be reckless and don't you have to do your homework, and you have to do the groundwork before you bring forward something big like that, because it shakes our communities. And so it's important for us to continue to have conversations. But I guess, going back to your question, if I felt supported, I'm going to say I felt supported by those who showed up and who ultimately supported, and I think that's all that matters, to be frank.
Yeah. Our region saw one of the biggest Democratic primaries in CD22. And I want to ask you not specifically about that race, but more about, are we witnessing a political realignment locally, in your opinion?
I think and I believe that we are searching for the soul of the Democratic Party, not only in Kern County, but all across the United States. As I mentioned in the beginning, I believe that the status quo is not working for working people. We need to make sure that when we're out there talking to folks, we're talking about the issues that they care about. We're talking about healthcare. We're talking about our young people having opportunity. We're talking about making sure that we build an America that truly lives to its highest ideals, such as the pursuit of happiness, and that we all are all equal in the United States of America. And so I think that we've seen and we've been seeing, there's been races in Colorado, there's been races in New York, and there's been races, of course, in our very own backyard where politicians. And I think the reason that people like me, people like Randy Villegas win races, people like Leticia Perez win races, is because we know what working people care about. We know, we speak to the voter. We talk to them not only about the issues that they care about, but we've, in my case, being reelected, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but when I was reelected, to me, that showed me that the people saw the work that I was doing and they said, yes, we want more of that. That young brown kid, Latino, coming from immigrant families, we want him to continue to serve our community because he has been delivering, but we're not done, right? We have much more work to do. And so I think we need to have bigger conversations on when it's election time.
Yeah.
I think me and you have had some serious conversations that as people and when we support candidates and when we support elected officials running for office, the main question that I think we need to ask is, where in the hell have you been?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you been hiding? Have you been on the grounds? Have you been speaking to the people on the issues that are affecting them? We're witnessing a full-on attack on our fundamental ideals, and we're coming towards election time. It's 2026, and then we're, of course, coming to 2028. We need to ask those questions. Where have you been, and what have you done?
Well,
because this is easy. Talk is cheap, right?
I think that's such a good point. Like, where have you been, right? Because I think there's a little bit of extra vulnerability when you haven't been around, but then you kind of just hop in calling the shots, and there's real consequences. I've been having conversations. One of the questions that keeps kind of coming up for me is, the pattern of influential people that continue to repeatedly misread the political temperature that's going on around us. And they're misreading the political moment itself. At what point do we ask, are these decision makers accurately making these calls and listening to voters or members of committees, right? Like, I think there are serious gaps that are happening. And at some point or another, you either become very vulnerable because of those severe risks and mistakes that have consequences, or somebody creates a boundary somewhere that says, look, I understand, you're this X, Y, and Z person, but we have our own thing over here, and bringing you in to call in all the shots it just doesn't work. It's not working.
You know who calls the shots? The voters.
Exactly.
Democracy. That is who calls the
Absolutely.
shots. And if the voters have told you repeatedly, countless times, that you are not it, no offense, you back up and you walk away. And so, for example, in my own community of Delano, I haven't walked away because I know that the work that I'm doing is truly changing people's lives. And of course, we're not at the point where I can say that Delano's set for life. No, Delano is like any other rural community, is a work in progress, is a collaborative effort amongst everyone. And it's also important to make sure that we're asking who's not in the room, but also who else are we mentoring, are we guiding, to then later on continue to take on this fight. And
Yeah.
so, for example, one of the young people that I've lifted up many times is Alexis Ortiz, who has been a young person coming from high school, who has had so much hope and aspiration for the future, and who contacted me and said, I want to get involved. How do I get involved? Chris Serta, I don't think you've met him before. Chris Serta, who also got involved and said, I want to be part of something bigger than myself, and who got involved and is now at UCLA, about to graduate and about to go into law school. And so we need to make sure that we're building up the future generations to continue to take this fight over, because there are many Sal Solorio Reeses out there who want to serve, who look around and say, my elected body doesn't represent me. I want to feel represented. And to those people, I say, you are the change that you seek. I'm going to tell you, Flor, when I first ran for city council back in 2020, without getting to personal names, there were folks who told me, don't run. You're not ready. You just got out of college, right? I agree. You're not part of the bench. I think it's important for young people and for anyone who wants to be part of public service to walk in with their head up high, with their shoulders back, and know that they belong in any of those spaces.
No.
Because if I didn't take that risk of running for city council back in 2020 with very little experience to none, freshly graduated after college, thinking that I wanted to change the world, if I didn't take that risk, I wouldn't be sitting here right now with you as the mayor for the second largest city in Kern County on Floor Unmuted.
Yeah.
Talking about some pressing issues that our community is dealing with. And so to that, I say, do it. If you are thinking of running for office, do it. You need to care. You need to care about people. And you need to understand that the work that we do is truly going to change people's lives. The laws that you enact and don't enact is going to impact people's lives. And so I'm excited to see who comes down in the future, because and I'm going to also say this, is people who care about the community, such as yourself. I think you have a very promising future ahead of you. I would put all my eggs in one basket if I could, and urge you to run for city council, for anything, because we need more Flor Olveras. Truly. We truthfully do, because you truly care for our community, and also for young women to see you in the way that you move yourself in different roles and capacities, and governing boards, and even this podcast. Down the line in the future, people are going to listen to this and they're going to say, you know what? Flor Olvera gave me motivation and inspiration to tell me that I belong in Kern County, in this community. And
Thank you.
absolutely.
I appreciate that. There's so much admiration for you too. I mean, being a young Latino, serving on the Delano City Council, it's honestly really awesome to be able to collaborate with you. So I really appreciate that.
But it also lets us know that we are not alone in the way that we think. It's our values.
Yeah,
It's our
for
values,
sure. For sure.
the values that our parents raised us with,
Yeah.
that we see people for who they are,
Mhm.
that we don't
Yeah.
judge a book by its cover, that we
Yeah.
treat everyone the same, that we love our community. Those are the values
Yeah.
that our parents instilled in us, that we
Yeah.
abide by the
Yeah.
Constitution of the United States.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think in like political terms, the like people like to put people in boxes. And I think with what's happening and like the progressive versus establishment, like personally, I always saw myself as a progressive Democrat, but progressives think I'm establishment. And
Let me
and
tell
so,
you,
you
they will
know,
always do that. They will try to put you in a box so quickly.
absolutely.
I've been called conservative, I've been called moderate, I've been called socialist, radical, you name it. What I am is an American.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just care.
No, there is a culture of we're in Kern County, like, you have to work with everyone. And like, what does that look like? I mean, because if you're super progressive on a governing board of 8 people and you're the only progressive, I mean, eventually, like, you're going to have to work across the aisle with 7 other people if you're going to get anything done. Right. And so, I understand that, we should push back on a lot of these narratives. And it's really awesome to see that happening, right, on a national level and even right here in our congressional district 22.
Because, when we look at effective leadership, to be frank, right, we live in Kern County. It is predominantly a red county, meaning for those who are listening and who are like, well, what does that mean? It means that it's overrun by Republicans, which is okay, right? Because at one point it's democracy, it is what it is. But at the same time, you have to know that regardless of personal opinions or ideals or you name it, you have to come to a consensus on issues that do matter that we can all get on board. Issues like our housing. We all know we need to build more housing. We all know that we want, whether you go to the west side, whether you go to the east side, the north side, you name it, whatever side of the community you go to, everyone cares about public safety. Everyone cares that their grandmother, when they're walking down the streets, they feel safe. So this idea and narrative that only one side cares about this and only one side cares about that, we have so much more in common than what divides us. I truly believe that. I've knocked on doors where, and I knocked on doors also in like other communities like Shafter and Wasco, where people have came out with "Make America Great Again" hats. Hopefully, I'm not bursting anyone's bubble here, but I am not a Trump supporter. When people come out of who I'm knocking on their door and they come out with that hat and they say, "Oh, I'm going to talk to you," and they debate me on issues like that on the national level,
Yeah.
I've brought it down to issues that we care about. I say, "Hey, brother, you care about our streets being safe. I do too. You care about us bringing in more jobs. So
Mm,
do I. You
yeah.
care about making sure that our houseless community not only gets help, but they change their lives. So do I. We all have so much more in common, and we need to make sure to continue to have those conversations. And if there's consensus on a body, on a board, on issues that are the bread and butter for people's life, oftentimes when I'm up on that council making a decision, I don't sit there and say, let me vote as a Democrat. I don't say that.
Yeah.
Because of course, number one, it's nonpartisan, right? You shouldn't.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but as we see in other boards, it's gotten incredibly divisive and partisan. But you sit there and you say, I'm going to vote because I know the community and I know how this policy is going to impact them, both negative and positive. And
Mhm.
so, and oftentimes as well, when people vote, as we have seen, they vote for the person who they believe that they're going to help them. And so, and we could even categorize that even the 2024 election. and even the rise of Donald Trump,
Mhm.
which is that people felt like this man was going to bring down grocery prices, was going to help the economy, was going to make their lives better because people felt like, who is listening to me?
Yeah.
And they said, let's choose the random guy who apparently is a
Yeah.
is a
It's
is a
almost
fake
like the
billionaire.
authenticity made him the best one.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone told me that he, during the campaign, he was literally Googling grocery prices. He was Googling affordability. What does it mean? He doesn't give a damn about everyday Americans. Okay. He lied.
No.
He
No,
doesn't
we
care.
learned
All he
that the
cares
hard
about
way.
is his ballroom. All he cares about is giving tax cuts to his billionaire friends.
Yeah.
And so I think
Yeah.
whenever people vote, you need to vote not Democrat or Republican. You need to vote, am I rest assured that this person is going to change the lives of my community, of my children? And I'm going to say predominantly it is Democrats, but I have a big heart for people like Liz Morris, who's on the city council here in Delano, who is a true public servant. She served the city of Delano for over 20 years. She is 80 years old. She's running for re-election, by the way, but my God, does she have so much energy and so much love for this community. And she is a Republican, but that doesn't matter to me because she has common sense on what the people care about. We've agreed on many issues. And so I say that because I want folks to know and to hear that there's hope out there, that there's hope for us to work together to solve the issues that we all care about. And
Yeah.
so outside of national politics, get involved and truly try to make a change in your community. Again, you are the change that we seek. It's up to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For somebody who's thinking about serving their community. And so you answered it like beautifully. Now, I'm going to ask you probably the most controversial question of this entire episode. What's your favorite place in Delano?
Oh my God, don't ask me that.
Okay,
No, it's okay.
okay.
So I will answer.
I did say you were in the hot seat, but that's definitely putting you on the spot.
It is absolutely the hot seat. I
You
am
can't
gonna
say your
answer.
mom's house.
No. I'm going to answer the way that I believe the mayor should, which is that choosing a favorite restaurant is like choosing a favorite child. You just can't.
Good
But
answer.
but I will say that we need to support all of our businesses in Delano, from Jenny's restaurant, which is very popular, to
So,
Phil Bake Shop, to new establishments that are locally run, such as Claveria Coffee and Bakery, such as the Little Boba
I
Shop,
love that place.
such as Tacos Humildes, who, by the way, started off as a food truck and then now is a full establishment, owning two establishments, one here and one in Bakersfield.
Wow.
And so I think we need to support our local businesses. They are the backbone of our city, of our community. We also have the best sushi in Delano. Okay, you need to stop by our sushi places. Oishi is the best.
Really?
La Barca has some
Interesting.
fantastic tacos. I can go on and on about the food in the city of
Are you
Delano. And
serious?
so
I didn't know that you guys had a sushi place.
it is the bomb. It is the bomb. You need to come and try it.
I love sushi, so we definitely have to check it out. Okay, another question. Do you prefer coffee or energy drinks?
God, it depends on the day of the week. Like today I got an energy drink. Yesterday I got an iced coffee, brown sugar, oat milk, shaken espresso.
Love
I'm
those.
sorry. That's what I
Love
do. I'm one of
those.
those. I'm
Okay,
one of
you need to
those.
get it with brown sugar foam on top.
Have you tried salted caramel cold foam? Try that. But of
Yeah.
course, I do have my Keurig, and I try to make coffee.
Last one.
Well, these are fun questions.
Yeah, these are the fun questions. What's one leadership lesson that everyone learns the hard way? If you can think of one.
Yeah. Oh, I have one. Not everyone will be your friend,
Yeah.
and I don't think I have to elaborate on that. Every decision you make, you think that you can't please everyone. You can't please everyone. It's impossible.
Yeah.
We are in the business of the people, and some people are going to be fond of the decision that you made, and some people are going to think that it's the absolute worst thing. And you have to sit with yourself and understand that even if, at the end of the night, when you fall to sleep, you can sleep knowing that you made the best call for your community.
What is the biggest misconception about being mayor of a city?
The biggest misconception, I got it. The biggest misconception is that people think that this is my full-time job. People think I make millions, thousands. I live off of being an elected official. Oftentimes people ask, what you can't just come and meet with me? It's like, I have an 8 to 5. I can't. And so people don't know that. And I think that that's important to know, because even in the city of Bakersfield, that's not their full-time job.
I know.
I think oftentimes, yes, your elected official works for you,
Mhm.
but when it's 8 to 5, they may not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's a
yeah,
full-time job there. We could raise tax dollars and I could do this
that's right.
full-time. Want to give
I would love to do this full time. I would love to do this full time,
Yeah.
which in a sense we do, because, when I wake up, I'm getting text calls, people providing their 2 cents and complaint about, make this better, help me. And so even when I'm falling asleep, I get an email, I get a message, I get a call during my lunchtime. And so when I'm not working, I'm still working. So
I know.
yeah.
Sometimes I reach out to like my city council members and I'm like, I feel so bad. Like I am like, wait, like they're probably so busy with like, but I have to get out of that. The way that I do it though is like I try to be very like strategic, like problem, this is what I'm hearing. This could get really
Yeah.
ugly. Possible solutions. You might want to look into this.
You
And
know,
then
you make
that's
a
what I
great point, Florida, because one of the things that I recommend people doing is, yes, calling me, texting me. I gave people my number. Calling, texting me is important. But if you text, if you email, that is easier to forward to staff, because oftentimes that's what we do. City
sure.
manager, FYI, can we address this? Can you get your staff on it? Can you go, someone didn't get their trash can picked up? You name it.
No.
I'm not the one
No,
making
you
the
get
call.
those calls? I know
I
to
get
call
those
Public
calls.
Works.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's just the
I
way that it
love that
works.
though. I love that. It definitely like keeps you human.
People call me and they tell me, my so-and-so street is filthy. And you know what? And don't, because at least me, it does something to me in a good way. It motivates me. It inspires me when I see that I help solve something by
Oh,
being that connection from the people and to City Hall. Like this is the people's house, and so it's important for them to know that we're here to solve those issues.
yeah.
That's heavily important to me, and it makes me feel good, like I'm
Uh,
truly doing something. And we have a couple of more projects that we're going to be unleashing this year, and so stay tuned for that, in particular with our young people. One of the things that we didn't talk about was we established the first ever youth council in Delano. And so it's called Next Gen Leaders, and I'm going to help run it. And I'm excited. I
now,
think it's exactly what we're looking for in uplifting our young people and truly providing them a voice
wow, that's
to government.
amazing. That is
Yeah.
amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations. That sounds like it's going to be really great. Sal, thank you so much for joining me. And any last words, anything that you want to leave us with?
If people feel a sense of misery because of what we're seeing in the times that we're living in, I want you to know to keep having faith and keep having hope. Whether you are in Chicago, whether you are in Washington, D.C., sepan que hay gente como Flor y como yo que a nosotros sí nos importa. Nos importa la gente trabajadora. We love the working class and we fight for what's right, and that this country belongs to you, and it's the only way that we can preserve our country and preserve our democracy is by actually doing it. As we've oftentimes heard, democracy is a verb. It's an action that we consistently do, and we should not take for granted. The Constitution of the United States does not protect itself. We do. The people protect the Constitution each and every day with our vote, with getting involved, and with running for office. And with that, thank you to Flora, and thank you to Flora Unmuted, and thank you to all the listeners.
Thank you, Sal.